Okay, cool. This is the case for the Tilta follow focus that we have. The case includes batteries, a neck strap, two pouches that hold various cords. So this one holds the power cord for the charger and the power cord for the actual focus module. The second bag holds the focus mark rings as well as a rubberized gear for lenses that don't have their own teeth. On this side, we have the battery charger, the focus module that goes on the lens, and also the focus hand unit, and as well as its riggings. The hand unit takes two batteries, but it comes with four, so we'll always have two charging. These batteries are rated for 25 hours of constant use, so they last quite a long time, but we have extras that you should always keep charged in preparation for your shoot. The neck strap comes if you don't want to actually connect the hand unit to a pole or a stand. There's this little circular socket here that you put the neck strap into, and you can dangle it around your neck now in a safe and easy manner. All right, the first thing to do is simply insert the batteries. Be careful because the power of this battery ejecto button is fairly violent. If you ever take the batteries out, I would do so with it facing upwards rather than facing down, because if you eject them going down, they're going to violently shoot out the bottom. So be careful of that. We've attached a clamp to the side of this so that you can easily attach it to a C-stand. You can clamp it in place and now never have any fear of it dropping or falling or breaking in that case. Now you can easily operate it securely. Okay, so we need to mount this on the lens using our rail system, but one thing that is important to know is that this entire apparatus is adjustable. So depending on the lens, the difference between a Rokinon or a Zine or another lens, the teeth in the gears are wildly different. This can also get adjusted to be on the bottom, so you have even more flexibility. So don't feel like you're beholden to the form factor of this. This is adjustable. Also, be careful that you don't unscrew this all the way because these shims, these pieces that grip onto the rails, will fall out and you'll lose them. All right, so as we slide our focus motor on, my suggestion and my advice is to try to have the gear as low as possible. The higher you have it, I find the easier it is for the motor to fall off the gears of the lens. Your number one problem with this whole entire unit will that this will just plop off, and it is easier to stay more secure if you mount it almost as low as possible. So I like to mount mine just about here and then ratchet that into place. Now you never want to like really ratchet something in as hard as you possibly can, but this is something that is really going to benefit from you really securely tightening this down. The more loose that this is, the more likely it is to fall off the teeth of the lens and then be inoperable. Okay, so to power this unit, we have our power cord that one end goes into a D-tab and the other end goes into one of these sockets. It does not matter which socket that you use. There are two sockets because if you ever needed to have two of these motor units together, perhaps one doing the iris or one doing the zoom on a zoom lens, you can daisy chain them together. We don't have that with our units. You shouldn't really ever need two of these, but for that reason, it does not matter which insert that you put it in. So basically one side goes in there, and then the other side will thread either into the back of the camera or the D-tap port on the side of the AB battery. So you can plug it in either to this slot here on the side of the battery or to this slot here, kind of hidden at the top of the back end of the URSA. So there's so many buttons both on the front, there's a knob here, there's the wheel, and then there's buttons on the side. There's only a few buttons that you should actually concern yourself with. So many of these buttons kind of are above the scope of the projects that we do here, and we don't want you to reconfigure the way that we have this set up. So the power button is this big emblem that doesn't necessarily look like a button. It is a press and hold situation. And then the other button that you're really going to need to use is this button that says CAL, Cal for Calibrate. All the other buttons I would avoid for the use the way that we have it set up. So on the actual motor, there's quite a few buttons. The power button is the one that says power, that's a press and hold. And then it also has a button here, this bottom triangle that says CAL for calibration. Those two buttons are also the only two buttons you'll need to know for our purposes. Once you have it turned on, you should be able to spin the wheel, and then this spins like magic. It's honestly a wondrous tool, and it moves really smoothly and evenly, but that is not the last point of our setup. To set up, you have to calibrate both devices for the lens. Every lens is different, and the system and the motor needs to know where the end of the rotation of its focus throw is. Basically, how far will this spin to the left and the right? The motor needs to know those points so it won't break the lens or break itself. The way to calibrate is two different ways. You either press and hold the calibrate on the hand unit, or you press and hold the calibrate on this unit. So to calibrate from the motor unit, you press and hold the bottom triangle for 3 seconds. It'll count down 3 seconds for you, and it'll spin the focus wheel all the way in one direction and then spin it in its entirely all the way to the next direction. Depending on the lens, you might have to lightly hold the two units together in order for it to calibrate without slipping off of the gears. In order to calibrate the lens from the handset unit, you just press and hold the button that says Cal at the bottom here, and it'll count down 3 seconds for you, and then cycle through both sides of the lens. Once the motor and the system knows where the lens ends and begins, it'll actually not go to that absolute distance. It'll stop a little bit before each ending point so as not to rock and shake the lens, which will essentially ruin your shot. So now when you cycle through the focus range of the lens, it knows to stop before those ending hard points. So make sure you press and hold the power button to turn the motor off and not just yank the power from it, because you might cause an electrical shortage and fry the motor entirely. So always, always, always hard power off by pressing the button rather than just yanking its battery. We have 2 of these dry erase discs into every unit, and they fit just over its grooves like so. The way this works is you mark your focus points with a dry erase marker. So if I know my first mark is right here, I would mark a point here using a better marker than this, and then go to my second point and I would mark it. The first AC should do this before you roll, get their points, and now they can focus pull effortlessly, almost without even watching the action or without even watching the monitor. Of course, they would still want to watch and adjust as needed, but this makes it so much easier to focus pull rather than being glued and being reactive. You can be a little proactive with your focus pulls. Make sure that you wipe these off when you're done and not just put them back into the bag like this so they don't bake into that mark. Oftentimes I see students holding their focus module like this, almost as if it's a steering wheel. This is meant and designed to be held like this, almost like a fishing rod. You should understand your focus plane as like a slice of the air that you're either pushing out or reeling in towards you. When you're spinning the focus wheel like this, it's like you're releasing it, like you're pushing that focus plane away from you, or you're reeling it in as you reel it in this way. This gives you a better way to visualize and conceptualize the movement of that focus plane that you're controlling. When you're holding it like this, like a steering wheel, it's hard to visualize moving it right or left as a control factor of that focus plane. So sometimes when you're using older lenses or photo lenses or vintage lenses, they won't actually come with the cinema focus gears intact. That's what this rubber device that comes in one of our packages is for. You would actually wrap this around the lens and secure it in place as tightly as you can without damaging the lens. Once it's secured in place, it should operate just like a cinema lens, but it comes with its faults and it will slip in and out. If you need help with this, this is something I would come into training for. So the way this charger works is you have to really pull down this spring and make sure the top contact, that positive contact, is touching the contact of here. It won't be charging unless this light turns red. It is very easy to think you have it in place, but unless those contacts are touching and then that light turns red, it is not actually charging. They'll be finished charging when the light turns blue. If it's still red, then you're still charging. Good luck on your shoot.